So just to let you know, I am terrible in the morning. So the fact I'm here at all is a miracle. And I keep looking at you all going, you're all here at this time as well. So no, I'm delighted to be here. This is quite strange because, of course, now is a bit of a, a tricky one. It's because it's a fleeting shimmerer of a thing, isn't it? The second you say now, it's gone already. So what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to do a very brief history of the gallery and then talk about how we only have agency in the present. It's like the past is gone, the future is yet to be, but we called yesterday today. I mean, it's constantly a shifting thing. So some of you here may know that I opened Cupola Gallery when I was 23. And I joke that I was too stupid to know any better. So I basically say I went completely bonkers and opened a gallery because I didn't know how hard it was going to be. So yeah, not now, but then. This is a very scary photo of me as an art student at Sheffield Poly. Look, Poly before it was Hallam. And I'd had a very weird... I'm very lucky in some ways because from the age of 15 I knew I wanted to open an art gallery. Don't know why. I just had this desire. And after I finished art college, it was like, well, what am I going to do then? I'm going to have to go this side because I'm right in the middle of that, aren't I? Or can I bring it? No, that'll go badly. You want to go round there?
Sorry.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
That's better.
Just give me a nudge when you want me to move it on.
Yeah, right, okay. So, I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to make a living as an artist, and I wanted to open an art gallery. And the world was really not very impressed by this idea. And then it happened. Whew. So what happened? I ran off to Scotland to get married. Next one. I learned how to picture frame in a fortnight. Next one, and I opened a gallery. Okay, this is Cupola Gallery, and this is a picture framer. So, very brief history to that. How did it happen? After I graduated, I actually wanted to open an art gallery. And so, how many people here remember the Enterprise Allowance Scheme? 2, 3. Okay. There was, because this was in the 90s and things weren't going well, but we've not been going well for a while recently, but we won't go there. And I went on a few courses and everybody said there is no way you can do this, right? I went on a business course that basically said you buy it in, mark it up, sell it off. That's not an art gallery. I went to the Arts Council who said, and they've since said to me they should never have said this, but they did. We've supported so many galleries in the past that have gone down the Swanee, we don't bother anymore. Inspired with confidence, you can imagine. I went to the bank, and I have to say the bank manager almost patted me on the head, as if to say, yeah, right. And so, 30 years ago, 30 years, that means I'm 30 years older than I was, which is terrible. But there was no published extant information about what it costs to run an art gallery. And 30 years later, there is still no published information about what it costs to run an art gallery out there in the public realm, because most people don't want you to know. Okay, so I've graduated, I've got a space at Yorkshire Art Space, and I've gone, I can't do it. Can't borrow money, can't get a business plan together, just can't do it. And then one morning I woke up and there was an envelope on my doormat, and it was a letter inside which was a cheque for £14,000. It's like, what the hell is this? And my grandma had died about a year previously, and I'd not thought anything of it other than, oh, obviously my grandma's died. And I'd received this, unbeknownst to me, this inheritance. Now, most people would go, yay! I went, well, maybe I can open an art gallery. I had no idea what I was doing. And I say, because I've been doing this talk before, that I paid off my debts, my partner's debts, ran off to Scotland to get married. And, well, it was all weird. So basically, I got this money, just went, oh, I'm going to open an art gallery. I'd advertised myself as a freelance artist. I'd drawn a few dogs and babies, as you do. And this guy got in touch with me who ran this shop here, which is Picture Framers. And he offered me some work, freelance work, that I would have rather eaten my own teeth. It was horrible. It was decorating tabletops in a faux naive African style to export to America. But it turns out he was running down his business to either leave it or sell it off cheap because he was emigrating to Alaska. I'm seriously not making this up. This is true, right? So when I got this money, this thing popped into my head, and I got in touch with him and I said, how much do you want for your business? Because my little head said this was empty. This shop was empty. So this was a Picture Framers. And I went, oh, I wonder if a Picture Framers can subsidise a gallery. You know, maybe I could get income from that and open a gallery. And so he said, oh, I want £10,000 for my business. Well, I had £6,000 left. So I said, could I pay you 6 and pay off the last 4 within the first year of running the business? He went, yeah, all right. And I was like, okay. The landlord said, if you take next door, I'll give you a deal on the rent. And I just went, yes. And then I ran off to Scotland and just learnt to picture frame in a fortnight and opened a gallery, which was completely bonkers. My husband did say at the time, if I knew you were going to open an art gallery, I never would have married you. Because to be fair to him, I didn't ask him. I just did it. You know, I had 2 brothers. One went on holiday somewhere. Andrew went, you know, they had lots of fun with this money. I just started into an empire of debt. But there we go. Next story. So I opened the gallery, and this was the first thing that happened. So in terms of thinking about now, I just did it. I didn't know what I was doing. I just had an idea. And in my head, I thought, if I've got no money, I've got no money to lose. I'd never had a proper job. I'd freelanced, which, you know, didn't really work. I was working at the coal board at the time. Worst job I've ever had in my life, filing. Just awful. But then I did this and thinking there'd been an art college for 150 years. There was at least three working studio spaces at the time in Sheffield, and there wasn't a single place to show or sell contemporary art in the city. Not anywhere. And when I asked people, they went, oh, there's the university library, or there's the little gallery in Crooks. Now, the little gallery was so little, I couldn't get an A1 portfolio through the door. It wasn't little, it was minute. And I was thinking, this is just bonkers. And the bit I've missed out, because there's so much to do. My research for opening an art gallery, by the way, was me and my friend Sharon decided to put on a show where I was living at the time, which is a flat above a butcher shop on Worcester Road. And she was a printmaker, and she went up to college and silk screened a whole load of invites. And we then looked at each other and said, well, who do we invite? Because everybody we knew was either unemployed or unemployable. They were all artists. Terrible thing to say now, but that is what it meant. If you said, hello, I'm an artist, it meant, hello, I'm on the dole. You know, so this is where my sales technique probably was formed, because I literally accosted people in the streets. And I talked to people at bus stops. I took things to the church. I took things to the Crucible Theatre. I just distributed this stuff. And 60 approximately, people came to a flat above a butcher's shop on Worcester Road and bought artwork. And I was like, there is a market. They can't buy it in Sheffield. And obviously, armed with that huge amount of market research, I opened a gallery. But to me, what it said was, if people can't see it, how can they buy it? It's just not possible, is it? Unless you give people a choice, how can they decide what they like? So, not the right place for an art gallery. Famously, I set up between a betting shop and a laundrette round the corner from the Sheffield Wednesday football ground. Doesn't sound like a great place for an art gallery, does it? But why is that, right? Because the general assumption is that galleries are posh and artists are poor. General assumption? Galleries are posh, artists are poor. And so there is this idea that galleries need to be in the posh parts of the city because it's only people with a certain amount of money that buy artwork. I don't believe this at all, and I have proved that that is not the case. But when I asked people, why is it not the right place for an art gallery? People said, oh, it's in Hillsborough, which is a very Sheffield thing to say, because I still find it harder to get people from the other side of Sheffield to Cupola Gallery than I do up from London and down from Scotland. It is like, oh, I don't go to that part of the city. Sheffield has been described as the largest village in England, and it absolutely is. I have had people ring me up and say, yes, I've heard of you. I've never been because you're a bit far. And I say, oh, where are you ringing from? Thinking they're going to say Hampshire. And they say, Nether Edge. And I go, oh, right. Okay. So I truly believe you are not born eating Kellogg's cornflakes and liking Walt Disney. You know, unless you're given a choice, how do you decide what it is that, you know, is going to inspire you? So, next one. Right, so, oh, crikey. Again, this is a now thing. I met a very nice man. I'd opened this gallery. I hadn't got a clue what I was doing, other than the fact that I wanted to do it. I was picture framing, I, you know, got a show together. I'd been open about 3 months, and this guy walked in the gallery, and he came right up to me, right in my face. I mean, you know, personal space, not a thing. And he went, I don't know who you are, and I don't know why you've done it, but you've opened a gallery in my old backyard, and I like it, so I'm going to help you. Mind you, you better learn to do as you're told. I beg your pardon. Turned round, walked off. Who the hell was that? Well, this guy turned out to be a chap called David Butterfield, and he was ex-marketing director of London Weekend Television. He'd been senior marketing executive for Nestle. He'd had helicopters bring his sandwiches in and white Edelweiss flowers put on the mountain for an advert because he had that kind of budget. Now, the reason I bring now into that is because if I'd not have been there, that couldn't have happened. And it was an interaction. It was just amazing. He designed my logo for me. He taught me such a lot because he talked to me about sexism. He talked to me about industry stuff. He made me realise that this, PR, was massively important because people needed to be seen to know what you're doing, you know? And he pushed me. He really pushed me. He asked me questions some of my best friends wouldn't ask me. He asked me about my love life, all kinds of things. And I was really confused by this chap, but it took me ages to work out. He was pushing me to decide if I was going to be worth his time. And he gave me 3.5 months of his time for nothing, bearing in mind at that time he was charging £600 a day for his consultancy. And he made me believe I could do it. And that is so powerful. And that only happens by living in the moment, that personal interaction. I was talking to somebody earlier about the fact that so often we use text messages, we use emails, but emails and text messages are reactive. They're not interactive. You have to, you know, if you pick up the phone to somebody, you deal with it now, you know? It's not, you don't wait for a reply. And that kind of interaction was so, so powerful for me. So can we have the next one? I learnt a lot very early on. Oh, yes, I did. This was an international fashion show. This was, oh, yeah. You can tell me about that later. But that was, do you remember the Liz Hurley dress? Anybody old enough again? With the safety pins down the side, I had a show called Remembering Versace, and we created a dress made out of old aluminium Coke cans and various things, and I was using photographers I'd met to take photos of me. It was all about interaction. Talking to people is so powerful. You have agency with that interaction at any time. So again, oh, joy! Anybody remember this as well? Oh my Lord. So I'd been open a year, and then they cul-de-sac my road for 3 years. 3 years. 1 in 4 businesses in Hillsborough went bankrupt. That's 97 businesses went out of business at that time. And I thought, sod you. It's like, if I go out of business, I go out of business because I do, not because somebody puts me out of business. So what did it make me do? It made me instantly reactive. What do I do now? And I did all kinds of things. I got friends up out of bed at 2, 3 in the morning. They were still my friends, promise. And we got up and we put balloons on the diggers. We put notices on the cages. I hired circus performers to stilt walk and hand out leaflets. And it was amazing because, I mean, we had, you know, newspaper headlines that said road to Hellsborough. Thanks. You know, it wasn't great for business. But I do remember, this woman who walked into the gallery and she opened the door like that. She went, it's taken me so sodding long to get here. I'm bloody well buying something now I'm here. You know, and you respond to it, you do it. But can you imagine, I mean, and I've not got in very far yet. It's like, who the hell would have opened a gallery if they knew all this was going to happen? But you get on with it, you do it. Okay, next one. Images from the very early years. Oh goodness, this was a show where everything was £30. This was my reception gallery. It was like, remember, there was nowhere for contemporary artists or craftspeople to show anything, so I rammed it in. And also, I did that because a lot of people were quite scared of art galleries. A lot of people don't like walking through the door. The door is the biggest barrier. And I do have a tendency to say, my favourite customers are 3-year-olds. And people go, well, I don't spend very much. It's like, no, you don't get it, do you? 3-year-olds are brilliant because they don't know, they shouldn't, they can't. It isn't for them. It isn't a class issue. They just go, that's amazing. And they tell you what they like and they don't like. And actually, a bit of McDonald's marketing here, though. If you get the 3-year-olds in, they usually have to come with somebody. So it's wonderful. So I did do children's workshops. I did do things that made people feel as though they could find things. Because how many people love a rummage? Oh, they do, antique shops. Oh, what can I find? And so I did that, you know? It's not like that anymore because I hope most people know I'm not that scary, unless it's this time in the morning. Anyway, that was a show called Hot and Cold. Next one. Right, yes. Again, when I first opened the gallery, oh gosh, there's so many stories, but I was flat above a butcher shop in Worcester Road. Then my husband went to work abroad because he said, well, I never see you anyway, and it's true. So then when he came back, I wanted to expand the gallery, and I didn't have any money. So I thought, well, the only way to expand it is to move in. So then I moved in upstairs, and then the attic storage that is now was my bedroom, and the kitchen is still called the old kitchen. It's just around the corner, and this was sofa beds that you could pull out. So I had private views that finished at 3 in the morning because people just got comfortable. You know. So yeah, I moved in. Next thing, and I moved out when I was 9 months pregnant and bought a house so I could walk to work. So I literally live around the corner from the gallery. I had Joseph. Joseph was customer service. No, Joseph was customer liaison, and Daniel was customer service. Because if any of you have met my Daniel, you'll get nowhere with Daniel. And Joseph, just everybody adored Joseph. I think I have about 40 photos of my customers holding Joseph because he came to work with me. Joseph, we had him in a swing chair in the middle of the gallery because he was brilliant. He only woke up to be fed or, you know, or to be changed. And at the end of one of the day, there was a couple of quid in it. I thought, oh, I'll do that again. Now, both my boys were diagnosed with autism, and they're both completely different. Joseph is naturally very insular, although he doesn't look it there, does he? Bless him. And Daniel is hyper-controlling. So, well, hyper-social. Let's be careful here, especially if you're blooming recording me. But they're beautiful boys, very, very different. Yes, they have challenges. All parents have parenting challenges. But one of the things I wanted to say with relation to now is I read something on a forum that kind of upset me slightly because it said, a parent said, when my child was diagnosed with autism, I cried for the child I didn't have. And I was like, isn't that a bit strange? How can you haven't met this child, you don't know them. You know, that kind of really upset me, because these are little people that haven't yet told me who they are, and I'm fascinated. And so each day with both of my children was a school day. You learn and you grow, and you know, if you have no preconceptions, you can often get the best out of things. And Joseph is now 21 and Daniel is 18, and that's wrong, but it happens. So the next one, more shows and events, okay? Next one, open sculpture garden. So a lot of people see the front of the gallery, don't realise there's stuff in the back, which is another reason for me to drag them through the front door. This, again, another amazing thing about human interaction and connection is the fact that I had a landlady made in the image of a saint, which I think is quite rare. And I said to the landlady, I'd really like to turn this area into a sculpture garden, because it was tarmac. It was really rather unpleasant. And I said, but I haven't got very much money. You know, is there something we can do? And she said, no. I was like, she said, no, it's my premises. Tell me what you want and I'll pay for it. What? It's like, wow. So I rang my mum. Mum, what do I want? And my mum's a great gardener, and she suggested the layout and stuff. So there's planting around the edges and around the middle, and the rest is all pots and things. So that was amazing. I've commissioned artists too, and I love doing this because artists obviously respond in the moment, in the now. Artists are constantly connected with now. If I pick up a brush or a pencil and I draw something, I am in the moment. I cannot not be in the moment. If you're a contemporary artist, you respond to the now that is cultural, political, social. And I loved working with artists, you know, on briefs or not, to do things. I had a show, this was Eleanor Somerset. She created a ceiling mural for me for an exhibition called Joy, which was Christmas. And I loved my press release for that. So marketing people, my press release was, the Sistine Chapel comes to Coppola. Well, not quite, but do read on. So that was popular. This was 100,000 lights for being open 10 years. This was a melting ice sculpture. This was a huge sculpture. Ross Gilbertson made it for me. The show was called Treat, and behind every box was a treat. Was a handmade artwork. And the next one, I expanded and opened a framing department across the road, because when I learnt to picture frame, it was just in the back of the gallery, and it was so small. And when the guy who taught me how to do it, I noticed that he opened the back door to cut the wood, because you have these long lengths of woods and you have a mortar and you cut it and whatever. And I looked at him and I said, well, what do you do in the winter? And he said, well, you just do it quicker. And you did. So one of my first innovations was to actually make a little hole in the door that I could shut, because I was nesh. But okay, next one. Framing moved back next door in 2013. So the gallery is actually there. So occasionally people walk into the framing department and go, is this it? And we go, no, there. Next door. So, and the next one. Staff and volunteers. Oh, nothing without people. The whole gallery is nothing without people. And some people may recognise Ben, who works at Millennium Galleries, technician. She's now double on as architect, does all kinds of amazing things. Parveen still works. This is she runs house manager for Rose Theatre now. Graham's worked for me, bless him, for 14 years. Oh dear, it's like a life sentence, isn't it? But yeah, no, brilliant. And the next one. Solo shows and theme shows. So this is the Long Gallery. That was my front room. It's now the Long Gallery, as you can see. This was a glass show, absolutely mental. These things were 2 mil thick glass. I cut myself open in that. Ooh. But contemporary work, so exciting, always now. That's why I open a contemporary gallery. I am utterly fascinated by how artists make stuff, you know, and they make it all the time. It's to do with them, it's to do with our environment, and it's so different, and that's so exciting. I have worked out, I've shown the work of over 10,000 artists from all corners of the world since I've been trading. I've had work from Russia, from Japan, from Ukraine, from America, from France, Hungary, Germany, California, all over the place, absolutely all over the place. People often ask me, are the artists local? And I say, if the talent is local, I show it, but I don't show it just because it's local. It's got to be good enough. And that way everybody gets value from showing there. This was one of my most submitted to shows. It was called Monomania. You know what monomania means? It means an obsession with one thing in an otherwise sound mind. The amount of artists that was like, me. And so this was actually to do with depression, and it was knots. The whole thing was, I think it was called something like 31,218 or something, and it was how many knots. And it was to do with recovering from depression. There's all kinds of things. That is part of my craft gallery, which used to be my storeroom. Next one. In reception, we have jewellery. People tend to like that. And mixed items. Again, it's another one of the craft gallery. Keep going. Right, I'm still in the same place, 30 years and counting. This is the sculpture garden now. Yeah? So you can see how it's developed and grown. Yeah, gardening is very now as well, isn't it? Yeah, very much so, because, you know, like, somebody's eating it. Or it is growing. We get very excited. So yes, so that's the double-fronted gallery, and that's framing next door. And this is behind these two venues. Right. Okay, how long have I got? Am I still doing all right? Be quick. Okay, right. In December 2010, I nearly lost my business. Keep going. In my 20th anniversary year. Hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Basically, I lost my way in about 2007-8. I know that that was a financial crash, but I run a contemporary art gallery. The art world can be quite difficult, quite strange. And people were constantly telling me I didn't do it right. I should be doing this and I should be doing that. And when I started, I was quite happy with my own vision. And then I lost it. I kind of went, oh, maybe they're right, or maybe I should be doing this, and maybe I should be doing that. And I ended up taking a job somewhere else. And I put in a manager, and I take full responsibility because that manager wasn't able to manage. And I came back to in excess of £50,000 worth of debt. Okay? It's not really what you want. And in my 20th anniversary year, it's the worst year of my life. What a good smile that is. Because I was in a place where I was struggling to pay my artists. And that is horrendous. And I was in tears on the phone to people because I had one face and I was having to deal with something else. Not nice. But I said to my artists, I've never not paid anybody in 20 years. I'm not going to start now. You're just going to have to bear with me. Keep going. So I did. I managed it. I went, what the hell am I doing? Get back to where you need to be in order to move on. And I often say, if you lose your love, you will lose your way. Okay? And I'd lost the love for what I was doing. Okay, next one. Even put on a free festival as part of my 25th anniversary celebrations. Again, ridiculous, idiotic. But I decided to do it, so I did it. If somebody had said, in order to do the festival, Karen, you have to raise 70 grand in 6 months, I'd have gone, I'm not doing that. I did it. It cost me just in excess of 80. More debt, hooray. Anyway, next one. This saved my life. I started painting again. And that is the most now you can be. Because when you are creative, you are the most you ever are, okay? You lose yourself. It's just the best thing. I'm basically one of my customers, while I was having a nervous breakdown, lent me their caravan on sea houses on the northeast coast, and I just went, this is amazing, I want to paint it. She lent me the caravan again. I went for 10 days, I did 22 sketches, and I've not stopped since. And that has been the absolute saviour. Next one. Another crisis. Like I say, you wouldn't do it. My floor of the framing department decided to get wet, rotten woodworm just to upset me, obviously. And it was going to cost 20 grand to fix. Didn't have 20 grand. So I launched a campaign. You learn so much by responding to the now. We raised it, and 60% of my donations were anonymous. My customers were amazing. Next one, we're nearly done. So, since 1991, I've hosted over 300 exhibitions, given talks, put on an international fashion show, hosted performance art, wheelchair dance in my space, music concerts, creative workshops, crowd-funded, survived, Supertram, flood, debt, I haven't even mentioned the flood, 2007, financial crash, building collapse, pandemic. Whoa! So, there you go. 30 years in business, there's still so much yet to discover. Last one. There you go. Thanks for listening.